Thank you very much, Mrs. Huang, for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Okay, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are running for Congress?
Oh, okay. Well, great question. I'm Peggy Huang. I'm a Deputy Attorney General here in the state of California. I specialize in criminal law. I was born in Taiwan. I came to America when I was 7 years old. Moved to San Jose, and then when I was in high school, I moved here to Irvine, where it's the heart of the Congressional District 45. Congressional District 45 in Orange County includes the cities of Anaheim Hills, Villa Park, Tustin, Orange, Irvine, Mission Viejo, Laguna Woods, Laguna Hills, Costa de Caza, and Mission Viejo. And about a third of the residents in Orange County in this district are Asian Americans. And
One third.
One third, yes. And I'm running for Congress because I'm very concerned about the direction of this country. It's heading towards socialism. Definitely California, with all the progressive policies that we see that's been implemented the last 8 years, has been very detrimental to the state of California. Our homelessness went up, crime rates went up, cost of living went up, and it's not because of any type of disaster or market reasons, like oil prices going high. Gas prices is high because of the gas tax. And high taxes is causing people to leave California. The high cost of housing, a lot of the housing cost is due to a lot of burdensome regulations, taxes to pay for a lot of free things here in California. Crime rates went up as you look at the changes we had in the criminal law. And so a lot of those policies, as it becomes pushed forward on the federal level, we'll see the decline in standard of care and the quality of life. And, as someone who grew up in Taiwan under martial law, I'm really afraid that we would become a socialist country if the progressives continue to be in control.
You must have noticed there are quite a few Asian Americans are running for public offices this year. Do you think that's a new trend in California?
Well, regardless of party affiliation, I'm very happy to see more Asian Americans being involved. There are 435 members of Congress, and only less than 5 are Asian Americans, yet we are nearly 20% of the population. I think it's time for Asian Americans to stand up and advocate for the interests of Asian Americans. We are a big melting pot here in America, and it's good to have role models in Congress who care about Asian American issues. A lot of our issues center around immigration and small businesses. A lot of immigrants are small business owners, and so we need to focus on those issues that Asian Americans care about.
Can you tell me a little bit about, just give me a preliminary analysis of the political affiliation of Asian Americans in California?
Well, a lot of Asian Americans tend to be leaning left. We see that tend to be true in the second and third generation Asian Americans. They seem to have they went to liberal schools and kind of buy into this idea of social justice. Your first generation Asian Americans who come here from, Asia, they understand the idea of freedom. They also understand the idea of what drives opportunity. Low taxes. They can compare, the taxes in Japan, Korea, and Taiwan with American taxes. Economic policies here in America being very friendly to small businesses. That's how the immigrants can get started, is through those small businesses. Our second and third generation being so far removed, they forget or they don't know the benefits of those policies. They seem to be buying into this idea of somehow we're discriminated. The real cause of all this is that the failure to understand that in order to help people out of poverty and advancement is both education and economic security.
Right. So basically, second and third generation grew up in California. They're gonna be Democrats.
They tend to, but during this whole entire year I've been campaigning, the one thing that's very much on everyone's mind, regardless of whether they're Asian Americans or not, is they're very concerned about the basic issues of housing, gas prices, transportation, as well as the economic growth. So that's not going to be a party affiliation. And so I've been able to take my message to everyone based on solutions to problems.
Right. So as you said before our interview, you said you don't want to run as like Asian American. You want to run on issues. So I was wondering, I was going to ask you this question: how do people in your district perceive you as a candidate, as an Asian American woman candidate? Does that give you advantage or disadvantage?
Well, I think there's advantage because it allows me to relate to the immigrants. And not just immigrants who are Asian Americans, but immigrants from all over the world, being an immigrant myself. But at the same time, one of the good things about the running on issues is people forget who you are in terms of gender or ethnicity. They're interested in what kind of solutions you have to propose. So I haven't encountered anybody who said, oh, you're Asian American, how do you feel about X, Y, and Z? It was, what's your solution to all these issues?
You are a prosecutor, so I suppose you are tough on crimes. And
yes.
I think California has some very controversial laws. For example, Governor Jerry Brown signed into bill to make California a sanctuary state. What do you think that has brought to California, and what are Californian people's reaction to that?
Well, interestingly, before we became a sanctuary state, we were looking at upwards of hundreds of hardcore criminals being deported out of our country. When the Homeland Security Secretary testified before Congress a few months ago, he said in 3 months they only received 5 deportation requests. That means hardcore criminals who should be deported and be out of our country, out of the streets and not harming our residents, are still here in California. Prior to sanctuary state, they serve their time and then they're handed over to ICE and they're deported. Now they serve their time and they go back into the community. So we are seeing an increase in increase in crime rates as a result. Those people are going back to their community, whereas it was important to get them out of our society.
How much the crime rate has gone up?
It depends on where you live. We have seen some double-digit increases in some of our inner cities. We have seen some in single digits, but overall we have not seen a decline as we did in the past. It's one of the factors among all the different changes we had in criminal law. Before we had a lot of felonies, and now in violent felonies, they've been declassified as non-violent or even misdemeanors. So that's going to increase the crime rate. A lot of those people those individuals are hardcore criminals. And so before we put them behind bar and now they're out in 180 days, they're back to victimizing the community again. I have heard from law enforcement officers who said, they just said, give me the ticket. Just hand me the ticket. You don't even arrest me, because they know they'll be out on bail within 24 hours, and then serve 2 months in jail. Big deal. So for them, the punishment is no longer something they're afraid of. The other thing about sanctuary state is we used to have good cooperation at the border. Now without that, If you go and talk to the border agents, which a couple of months ago, I went down to talk to them and I said, oh, okay, so what's your number one concern? And most people think, oh, it must be illegal immigrants. And I said, no, it's not. It is actually the amount of drug trafficking and human trafficking that they have seen an increase in amount and lack of assistance. So prior to sanctuary state, the state police officers, or sheriffs in local jurisdictions will work with Homeland Security in catching these people, right? Well, now they're not working together. They're told, because we're a sanctuary state, we do not work with ICE agents.
Right.
So that means when, for example, you see a truck and suspecting of carrying drugs, and they're chasing them from the Mexican border. ICE officials used to be able to call the California Highway Patrol or the Orange County Sheriff or Los Angeles County Sheriff to help stop that truck.
Right.
Now they will not help. You are on the ICE. You're on their own.
Okay.
So we have the resources here in the state of California to help, but we don't use them because of sanctuary state. Same with a lot of drugs are coming in through the harbor. And Orange County Sheriff, Los Angeles County, as well as San Diego County have really good harbor patrol. When you're told you cannot cooperate because we're a sanctuary state, well, then they can run those drugs up and down. You have less people helping you patrol. And catching criminal as a result. So we're seeing, now we know fentanyl is one of the top drugs being trafficked to California from Mexico border, right? And it's increasing our problem. So instead of dealing with the crisis we have, the progressives, the Democrats are going after pharmaceutical companies. Fentanyl has good medicinal uses, right? But it is being abused. I'm not saying it's not. I recognize it is, and it's a huge problem. But if you go after the pharmaceutical companies who are producing it for legal reasons, and people are using it for medicinal reasons, well, you're taking away something that could help them instead of addressing the real problem, which is the border.
Right.
And that is what some of the problems that we see as a sanctuary state.
I wonder what's the rationale behind this California sanctuary state. Why is that? I mean, it's just common sense. It shouldn't happen.
Well, politically speaking, it is because instead of dealing with the problem, you have the Democrats thinking, well, that's another vote I can get. As long as if I cater to that interest group, they will vote for me and I stay in office.
So you came from Taiwan. Tell me a little bit about your cultural background and tell me how you feel about how this country and then especially California is going, what direction it's going. Are you comfortable with it?
Oh, well, great question. Growing up, of course, it was always, especially at the time I grew up, in the 70s, it's martial law, a lot of restrictions. You don't say much, you can't say much because you don't know what will happen to you. So America was this beacon of hope, this freedom, the idea of being able to pursue anything that you wanted to be. I remember, thinking that in comparing myself to my cousins and the opportunities I have to exceed and excel in America. And my cousins, in Asia, you have to take exams, right, to move on. I was never good at taking exams. So I'm pretty sure that I probably would be doing horribly right now. But here in America, it's about what you can do, how hard you can work. And as long as you can do that, you'll make it. The opportunities, American laws and policies are about opportunities. What we have problem with is helping people access those opportunities. So we have to work on access. It's not the lack of opportunities. And it was hard coming to America. When I first came to America, I didn't speak English. And I went to an all-white school, and they didn't have ESL. So I learned English by immersion. But I found that, that's really the way you should learn English, by immersion. Now we promote it as, the way to teach our kids. A lot of public schools are now Spanish or Chinese immersion. And the whole idea here in America, the culture of as long as you work hard, you will hit your goals. I think that's really great for immigrants and like me who said I could be anything in America. And that's why I'm fighting so hard and wanting to run for Congress. Is I want everyone to have the opportunity I had when I first came to America. America welcomed me.
You think people are losing that opportunity?
Yes.
Okay.
I do. If you see the lack of the affordability of housing, right? So home ownership is a very big thing here in America of economic stability. When you can't attain that, when you start adding unnecessary cost to building, it makes it unattainable, unaffordable. People lose the opportunity of setting roots down in a community. Owning a house is setting roots down in a community, being active and being part of the community. When you don't have that opportunity, then you lose some economic opportunities and stability.
So do you think California is going in a bad direction, wrong direction?
I think California, as under the current administration and under this progressive agenda, is heading the wrong way. And I'll give you an example. We know we have a housing crisis, and we need to have affordable housing to help people of all income level. Using the city of Newport Beach as an example, where they had made available 400 acres. And some of it to build some of those affordable housing. You had people coming together and saying, we're going to do it, right? And it passed the city council. The city is ready to build thousands of homes, thousands of units on this 400 acre with land set aside, nearly 200 acres set aside for open space. That's great for everybody to enjoy the ocean. And then you have a progressive group like the Coastal Commission who said, well, I know we don't care about housing shortage. We don't care about affordable housing. We don't care about having open space available to everyone. We just don't like houses along the beach. So they rejected the plan.
Okay, because that's ugly or that's detrimental to the beach?
They just said, well, it's not good for the environment. Well, the project was approved because, you have to go through the environmental studies. So it went through the environmental review. That's how you get approval. But somebody, this commission is so far left that they don't care. So we have this problem with this progressive. In the end, right now, they don't have a project, right? So when we talk to a lot of cities and builders, they're telling me, I cannot build affordable housing because your cost for material is so high. The cost of labor is so high. Everything is so high. I cannot build. I lose money if I build. So it's going to be problematic. Same with rent control that is coming down. Rent control, by setting the rent control the way it is, landlords will have a hard time having the money it takes to maintain a building. So if you own a new building, rent control probably will not affect you for the next 10 years. But if you have an older building, the rent control will harm the landlord's ability to fix a lot of and provide the maintenance needed. So these type of progressive policies do not help. In order to have a healthy real estate market is turnover. If you have rent control, you're just going to stay where you are. You're not going to have turnover. So that's also bad for the economy.
California passed some controversial laws, and sometimes I wonder how those laws are passed. For example, there's this Proposition 6, which intends to repeal the gas tax, but California had a referendum, and this Proposition number 6 was not passed. So I wonder, isn't that just common sense that it should be passed, but not in California?
Well, those who are in favor of gas tax, the unions put in a lot of money. They have more money than individuals who were against gas tax. They tried to sell it as a job. They said, well, look, you're taking away jobs. And
Why is that a job?
Well, they're union jobs, right, to work on these projects. So they built it as a union job, secured the union jobs. And one of the things that the Democrats are really good at is, instead of providing solutions, they just tug at your heart. Don't you want to do this? Doesn't that make you feel good if you do something? But most importantly, when you look at a lot of these propositions that we have, is taking advantage of the fact that nobody reads these propositions. When you have 15, 20 propositions on your ballot, that's a lot of reading. So it's very hard to read those, understand it, and then vote intelligently. And when you have millions of dollars in advertisement telling you whether the law is good or bad, you're persuaded by that rather than really going and understanding. There are a lot of people now I've spoken to. They said, I didn't realize that I voted to increase taxes this way, especially when when the gas tax caused the price of gallon of gas to be $5. People were saying, wait, why is it $5? He said, well, such a huge part of it are your taxes. Transparency is a big thing. And that's what we're lacking at the state government. And we need to be transparent. I'm very proud that in the city, where I'm the city council member in Yorba Linda, where we brought about transparency to the local government, where residents can see every dollar coming in and every dollar going out. And that's something that I want to do also at the federal level, is bring that transparency where people know where their dollars are being spent, and that we don't waste the dollars. And instead, if the government doesn't need it, then it should be used by the individual in the way that would improve their quality of life.
I know you're a cancer survivor. Tell me about that.
Well, it was quite shocking. Next month, in February, I will be a 5-year cancer survivor.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. And I went through quite a bit. I have really good insurance, but one of the tests that my doctor recommended to see whether or not I have multiple cancer tumor or just a cyst, was the insurance company denied it. And so, it really impacted my decision of what kind of procedure that would be best for me. And that's why I'm fighting so hard now to deal with health care reform. That I want that, the power of decision, it comes back to the patient and the doctor, and not being dictated by insurance companies over cost. Or they're trying to save.
Talking from the first-hand experience?
Definitely from the first-hand experience. And I can tell you, for example, there's a lot of push in the insurance companies to go to in-network provider, right? So you go to get your MRIs at in-network providers. Well, it can be about $1,500. Well, but across the street, an out-of-network or somebody who's not in a network could be charging only $790 for MRI. So we need to have price transparency, so people can see what they're paying. MRI machine is an MRI machine. So $1,500 is really not, you're not getting a better machine. So we need to have that type of price transparency where I know that if I go to the $700 one, I'll save some money on that. So that's very important. Number two, the health savings account. We should be responsible for our own health care, and we should be able to use the health savings account the way we want to use it for our quality of care. Right now, there's so much limitation about how much you can set aside, what you can purchase on, then you're really limiting people's ability to freely use the money to help them. It's not cheap. 24 hours in a hospital could be $70,000 easily for anyone. So if you can set aside your money in the health savings account to help you later on, that only saves money in the system. For myself, a lot of different tests that could have been done were denied, and I think that it could have helped me in my decision, in my choices of treatment. And as a patient, I should be the one who gets to decide what kind of treatment I want, and that's good for me. My doctor knows what's good for me, so he should be able to make a good decision. But instead, when the insurance companies start denying these procedures, then they take away your choices.
Let's talk about education. You are a mom, and what do you think of the public education in California, especially high schools?
I've been very disappointed with the quality of education. We have great teachers. I don't want to, teachers are there. But the problem is that the focus has been completely off. We have conversations about STEM education, but no one is really teaching STEM. Not qualified.
Can you explain what STEM?
For example, STEM is science, technology, science, technology, engineering, and math, right? So you need to really teach the kids there. There's this Common Core math out there that nobody understands, and because of Common Core, a lot of basic math like 1 + 1 are not being taught, and so now they're not ready for the higher math. The other problem that we see right now is integrated science. All right, so this idea of, you have to teach the kids a little bit of everything. Before we know, biology is 100% biology. The class is going to focus on biology. The class will focus on chemistry or psychology or physics. Now with integrated science, you're just learning a little bit of everything, but you never get the foundation. So we're hearing back, or I personally have heard back from college students who go into engineering, and they said, I am not prepared for college because I never learned the foundations in high school. I always call it integrated science for liberal arts people like me, who I didn't like science. And so it's okay for me to just know a little bit of biology or a little bit of chemistry. But if I am someone who wants to pursue biochemistry, be a geneticist, I need that basic foundation in order to perform in college. Integrated science is not preparing these kids. The other thing is I'm a proponent of vocational training. Not all kids are going to be built to go to college. And we don't, I think the biggest mistake in the 8 years of the Obama administration was this big push of every child must go to college. So we have kids who go to college and they might study, get a art history degree, but they cannot get a job when they come out. And so we're not really preparing them for a trade or a job. Now, that's not to say you should not go to college. If you want to go to college, you should go to college. But if, there's nothing wrong if a child who said, I am really good at wood making, to become a carpenter. then we should have those vocational training available, the apprenticeship, so that they can be good carpenters, or electricians, or being a plumber, or even being a nurse assistant. Instead of saying, I have met nurses, nurse assistant, who have gone through college, 4 years of college, and realized they really hated whatever major they were in. So then they went into nursing.
Okay.
Now you're talking about 4 years of school, right? And plus the student loans to discover that they don't like it, or they can't get a job and they have to switch field. How about we do some internship and vocational training at the high school level, and promoting that, and so they can discover early on, this is something I want to do or not. For example, there are up in Orange County, we have an ROP program where kids can go, a high school student can go in and learn about becoming a nursing technician. You finish the whole entire program, you get certificate, and you can get a job as a nurse technician or nursing assistant. Well, that's great, because if you finish that and you said, that's what I want to do, then you might have just saved 4 years in college.
Yeah.
You could be working right away, or get more advanced training, but you know where you're going.
Tell me one of your solutions that people are welcome.
Well, my proposal for student loans has been well received by young adults, students who are in college right now, even people my age. And again, I approach a lot of these problems facing Californians based on my own experience working in terms of direct services with, victims of domestic violence, child abuse, victims of crime. I worked on human trafficking, and as well as children with special needs. For student loans, my proposal is that many companies give out bonuses and commissions. Or they could have an education fund where they give to the employees to help them get, MBA or certificates, whatever. If an individual gets a bonus and chooses to use that bonus toward their student loans, my proposal is they don't pay income tax on that. Right now, any type of bonus or commission, you have to pay taxes on it. Well, if it's going through toward student loans, and we want to promote solvency, we want people to pay back the loans to the bank for the money and maybe some of your viewers are not aware, the student loans are backed by the American government. Okay, they're not private banks. The private banks have gotten out of this industry, and so Katie Porter and her big act of jumping all over the banks for being bad banks on student loans is complete lie, because they're just servicing companies. They don't make those loans.
Okay.
It's the federal government.
Okay.
All right. So we want people to pay back their loans and be responsible. So why tax them on the commission or the bonuses or education fees that companies want to help them pay back their loans? Let's help them pay back that loan.
How big of a relief is that for people?
Significant. If you think, for example, you earn if you are a salesperson at Nordstrom's, for example, and you made $3,000 in commission every month, you can look at $3,000 on top of your salary or your wages. Let's just say even $1,000, you're going to use $1,000 of that toward your student loans. That's $1,000. Yeah. But if you take taxes away, right, then now you're looking at $600, maybe $700.
Okay.
So that's significant,
That's
right? And that's the extra income, right? And so I can hypothetically, you can have someone who has a salary, who said, I will use 10% of my salary toward my student loans, and then earn the commission or bonus as extra payment that pays down your loans.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Now, as an incentive, as well as for the companies, when they help their own workers, they should not have to pay the payroll taxes on that, right? Because number one, the employees aren't it, but number two, you're really helping paying back down the debt. What you can do in this space is better than what you can do in terms of increasing taxes to give free tuition.
Right. Right.
Right? Because you'll end up paying more. If I only have 20 years worth of student loans, but I got free tuition, I'll be paying taxes on that student loan for the rest of my life. Versus when you work in this space where it's private industry of the employer helping employees, there's no reason for government involvement. And with 100% of the proceeds going back to paying off student loans, what you will see is that the sooner you pay off that student loan, the more discretionary income the person will have later on.
So you just raised a very important point, and I don't think I've heard that. So you think if you get free tuition but pay taxes all the rest of the year to support this free tuition, you end up paying more.
Correct. Because you'll be paying, right, for your own, and then you'll be paying for somebody else.
Right. Okay. So
right?
that's the idea.
I mean, that's the idea. And so you're actually going to pay more in taxes.
Has there been like a scientific research on that, calculations done?
I recall reading it, but I don't remember the figures. But there have been studies already been shown that it's actually more costly to an individual. And you think about it, if you do not own if you don't owe any student loans, but we're going to kick up your tax percentage, you're paying for somebody else.
Right, that's true.
Because there's I mean, the proposal for free tuition and student loan forgiveness did not say only for those people who currently have student debt, right? It is to be paid for by everybody, including those who do not have student loans, right? So there's no incentive for people to pay off their own student loans then.
Right. So solutions like this are welcomed by residents in your district.
Yes, they absolutely like the idea. And it is very market-based. It is based on what you can do as an individual. Employers like that because I had employers who said, hey, I set aside $10,000 to give to my employees to help them further their education, but it's not taken advantage of. It's just sitting there. I want to just help them become more successful, like managerial training, whatever, but they're not taking advantage of it. Well, what's another way to help their employees? You can see this as an additional benefit to the employee in a contract relationship, a contractual relationship.
Okay.
So it really does benefit everyone rather than hurt people. And that's what we want to do as policymakers. I call myself an elected official who is here to solve problems. I'm not a politician who is just going to give you political talk and not much more. I am interested in solving problems for individuals so they could further their lives. So if you think about how if in this mechanism of helping people pay down their loans and paying them off, in the long run, they have the discretionary money to put back into the economy to continue to grow the economy. Taxes only take away people's ability to participate in this discretionary spending. And so what happens is you don't have economic stimulation.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Becky.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.